it's me. Welcome to your first flipped lesson that you're going to watch. Thanks so much for hopping on the computer and getting this done for tonight. And we're going to be simplifying radicals with variables today. So you guys are doing a great job just simplifying regular radicals like we did in class. So let's go ahead and just review real quick how to do that. So if you have something that's not a perfect square like 24, you have to figure out the biggest perfect square that's a factor of 24. So our perfect squares, remember, are 4, 9, 16, 25, and so on. So usually it's going to be one of these first four. So it's for 24, the biggest perfect square would be 4. So we have the square root of 4 times 6, and remember, always write the perfect square first. And then we're going to break it apart. 4 is the perfect square, so that's going to come out of the radical. So that would be 2. And 6 is not a perfect square, so that stays underneath. So this is your final answer. Okay, just a review from yesterday. And then the more challenging problem, 27, we're going to focus on first. This is the root of 27. 4 doesn't work, so 9 is going to be our biggest perfect square. So 9 times 3 gives us 27. I'm going to bring this 5 down. So now I have to say, okay, 9 is the perfect square, so that's going to come out of the radical. So the square root of 9 is 3. I'm going to bring that 5 down with it. And that 3 is going to stay underneath the radical symbol. So now I have one more step in this one because I have this. So I'm going to multiply those. So I get 15 root 3. So hopefully those are simple for you. You could have even tried those without me. But those are just a review. So let's bring in the difference today. Now we have these radicals, but now we have variables with exponents. So there's a special way to do these, and hopefully you'll see a pattern after we go through them. So let's start with x squared. So if you have x squared, we need to find the square root of that. Well, what times what would give you x squared? It would be x. So the square root of x squared is just x, or x to the first. Let's move to this one. So x to the fourth, well, we think what times what times what times what would give you x to the fourth? Well, if I multiply x squared times itself, that would give me x to the fourth. So we're just breaking it out, cutting it in half. So same thing with this one. What times what would give me x to the sixth? Well, x to the third. So these are all even numbers. So hopefully you're seeing something that we do if your exponent is an even number. But let's jump over to the other column. If we have x to the third, it's a little more challenging because there's nothing that I can just multiply to get that. So what you're going to have to do is move to the next lowest. So you're like jumping backwards. What's the next lowest number that would be even? Well, that would be 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this apart into x squared times the square root of x to the first. So that would give me 3. 2 plus 1 gives me 3. So now I have what I had over here. I have the square root of x squared. So that would give me, if I break that apart, it would give me x to the first on the outside. And then I have that random x to the first that I couldn't break apart, so that's going to stay underneath. So that's how you simplify these types of numbers. So same thing here. I'm going to jump back to the next lowest even number, and that would be 4. So I'm going to have x to the fourth, square root of x to the fourth, times the square root of x to the first. So now this is nice and simple. I can break it apart. So the square root of x to the fourth is x squared. That comes out. And then I can't break apart that x to the first. And then finally, jump down to the next lowest for 7. So that would be x to the sixth. So I have x to the sixth times the square root of x to the first. Now I have x to the sixth, a nice even number that I can break apart. So that's going to give me x to the third, and then x to the fourth underneath. So what's the pattern? I want you guys to write down what is the rule when you have radical variables and exponents. Okay, what's the difference between these even and odd exponents? So be prepared to come to class with something written here for the difference between these two types of variable and exponents. So let's practice some of these real quick before you head off. And make sure you're writing these down and show them to me when you get to class tomorrow. So jot down all these examples. So this first one here is something like what you might see. So what I would do is I would first focus on the numbers. So if this a squared wasn't there, we know how to do the square root of 9. Okay, the square root of 9 is a perfect square. So the square root of 9 is 3. That's going to come out right away. Then I'm going to look here. Is this an even number? Thank goodness it is. So I can just break that in half like I did up here. So the square root of a squared is just a to the first. Now nothing is left over underneath the radical symbol because they're both perfect squares. So you're done with that one. That one was nice. I'm going to look here. I'm going to focus on my number first, but 12 is not a perfect square, so this is going to be a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to find the biggest perfect square I can fit into 12, and that would be 4. So that would break apart into 4 times 3. And I'm going to bring down my variables and exponents. So I have a to the 10th and then b to the 3rd. Alright, so all of that, sorry, getting a little crazy here. So then I'm going to start breaking stuff apart. So I have the square root of 4 would be 2, so that's going to come out. But there's no square root of 3, so I'm going to write my radical symbol over here. So 3 has to stay underneath. Then I'm going to move to my a, so a to the 10th. 10 is an even number, so that's going to be nice and simple. I'm just going to cut it in half, and that's going to come out. So a to the 5th. And then if you want, you can cross things off as you do them. And then b to the 3rd, yikes, this is going to be challenging because I have an odd number, so I have to go back up to here. So I'm going to do that up here since it's a little time consuming. So that's going to break apart into b to the 2nd, and then b to the 1st. So if I break that apart, that's going to be, this is going to come out, and it's going to cut in half, so I'm going to have b to the 1st. And then I have a b to the 1st underneath the radical symbol too. So this problem by far is pretty challenging. And we're going to practice these a lot in class tomorrow, so make sure you come to class with any questions and ready to practice these with me. Alright guys, you made it through. Make sure you have your pattern written here and show that to me when you get to class tomorrow. See you later.